Welcome to the Thresholds of Reality, the podcast where we explore unexplained and mysterious events, phenomena, and legends. Today we're joined by medium, demonologist, star of stage and screen, Sean Aston. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. And everyone else, strap in as we explore the edges of the unknown. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. We have been doing a lot of research into your work in the last couple weeks, and primarily we like to start by finding out how it is you came to find out that you had medium abilities, that you were interested in kind of the paranormal, demons, spirits, anything from behind the curtain, so to speak, of reality, and how that led you to where you are now.
It kind of happened by mistake. I tried to prove to a skeptic friend that ghosts were real, took him to a local cemetery that had an urban legend of 3 women in white that would chase you out. In that process, while he's laughing the whole night, I got my first EVP on my flip phone before we had smartphones, and I didn't know I had a disembodied voice of a little girl in front of a little girl's grave the next day, and that was a defining moment, and I'd say my trigger into the paranormal. 2-3 weeks later, I saw a shadow of a little girl at the corner of my bed, and that's really what kind of drew me in to wanting to go out and experience more. And I would just go out to cemeteries, even just with a recording device and a spirit box or a K2 meter, and it progressed from there. And here I am over 13 years later.
Well, I got to say, it doesn't sound like an accident. It sounds like you just got more than maybe you were bargaining for.
Yeah, no, I was meant to be doing what I'm doing. And, I never would have thought that this would happen like this, but it did. And I'm just following that path and that calling still to this day.
And as you, like that first entity, the first experience, the little girl at her grave, was it the same one that ended up at the edge of your bed? Was it the same entity, or was it a different one?
I mean, I can't say for certain, but considering it was a little girl's voice that night and a little girl appearing in a shadow form, I don't know. I can't really say for sure. But obviously you'd think that most likely there could be some sort of connection to the EVP and the manifestation I saw. And it was even at light. It was light out. It wasn't even dark. Where I woke up and saw this, it looked like a cutout of a little girl in the corner of my bed.
Yeah, that's wild. Now, as you've gone through your many experiences over the 13 years since you started this endeavor, are there any moments that kind of stand out in your memory as kind of character defining moments, or maybe the really strong evidence that you're looking for, or things that really stand out to you as the big hits?
Well, there's a story that I wrote about in my first book, Shadow Chaser, about a very profound paranormal experience having to do with what I believe to be 2 female spirits I crossed over that were trapped at a location. They were trapped there by a demonic spirit and potentially this man spirit that actually murdered them in life and tortured and killed them. And there was a demonic spirit that wanted revenge against me for quite a few years. And it stood with me. It would reference itself, but it tried to mess with my personal life and took credit for something that was messing with me and I knew I had to return back to this place. And we went back there and filmed a documentary, which is called Malefice, a true, demonic haunting. We were there for 4 days, and I went there to validate my experiences many years before. And ultimately I did an exorcism ritual in the house to hopefully, rid it from me and also let it lose its permission to whatever reason or however it was able to be there from what may have taken place there many years before.
So the exorcism ritual that you did, is it close to like what you see on TV or the movies, or is there something that you do different that you see that seems to work for you? Or
Well, so my mentor in demonology is Ralph Sarchi. He was NYPD sergeant. He worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren, and then his mentors became Bishop McKenna and Malachi Martin, were probably the most respected exorcists of our time. And he trained me on the way to do an exorcism ritual per se on how to approach getting rid of demonic infestations that are true in nature. So I would read, the whole exorcism prayer as blessed incense, frankincense and myrrh, and blessed salt and blessed metals in four corners of the property, the whole 9 yards, to really have the hope of displacing whatever negative energy was there.
So in doing that first time, was it like it's very taxing on you, I assume? Like what happened, like as it was working or not working, or like what were the stages of getting rid of that thing? Like when did you know that you were kind of like, I would say, like getting rid of that demonic spirit?
Well, I think when you're saying the prayer and you're going through the house, it is very, very draining. Number one, during the prayer, I'm just trying to focus on saying the prayer, not just saying it, but saying with conviction and faith behind it. Because, I say this to people all the time. It's like, it doesn't matter if you wear, I wear a Blessed St. Michael pendant around my neck, or if you got holy water. It doesn't matter if you do all those things and you throw it around like it's, a gun for protection. But if you don't believe in and have spiritual faith behind the methods that you use for protection, it will not work. And these things know that. Yeah. So it's really about focusing on the prayer and focusing on knowing that, you have guidance through God behind you and whatever dark entity you're going up against, no matter what you may be feeling. I was just focusing on the prayer because this was personal to me. And in this whole journey, and it was a very profound paranormal experience that stands out 100%.
So what were the kind of, was it like, so once you found out there was like a demonic presence, was it like a buildup, or was it like all of a sudden one day you're just like, what the hell is going on?
Well, there was a place that we went to go investigate for a couple of days that wasn't the place that we slept in, but it was across the street. And this place had a history of being a brothel and speakeasy and things like that. So, very interesting place, very haunted too. But when we went to go have a tour of the place we were sleeping in, I immediately had a feeling of being drawn to go down to the basement. And I felt like something really bad happened down there, and my equilibrium was off. So when we first started our investigation that night, after we were across the street doing a full investigation, I'm like, you know what, we should go across the street and see what's going on there. Cause I'm like, something's not right in the place we're sleeping. So maybe we should do an investigation over there. So we went there and we were down in the basement, and that's when it really started. I was having visions of like torture equipment and metal pieces, knives and stuff like that in the basement. And I feel like these women were tortured down there. And these women started coming through and saying it's a malevolent and screaming and all this stuff. And, that there'd be a foul sulfuric type smell that came out of nowhere in the house. And I remember like I think it was the first night I slept there. I had a rosary next to me in a perfect circle on a queen size bed. And when I woke up, it was on the opposite side of my bed in an upside down pile. There's no way I would have been able to get over there. Things of that nature. I knew we weren't dealing with something that was just human. There was definitely a nature of the characteristics of a demonic haunting that was there that actually progressed. And even after I believed I prayed for the spirits of these women, I'd start to hear this man say to me, "You have hell to pay for taking those women." And when I went home, I was exhausted from the trip, and I saw a shadow dart around my bed, and I had a vision of this man with his face all decomposed, his mouth hanging off, and he's just going like this, "You're dead." And I saw this black shadow in the corner of my bed with horns, and when it spoke, it was like through a subwoofer, and it said, "There are rules," in a very low vibrational voice. And I woke up thinking like, what did I just witness? Well, I was perplexed by the situation. I was like, is it referring to the female spirits that had crossed over? And these references to this case had for years, until I realized that it was kind of hovering around me, waiting for opportunity to mess with me and take its revenge and retaliation.
Right. So once you went home, there was it wasn't like The Conjuring where it was like this buildup. They were instantly like, we're here, you messed with us, we're going after you.
You step in the way of, you step in the way of the devil. I mean, you're making yourself an adversary to the enemy of man, and you got to deal with that repercussions. I mean, they don't forget things like that, and that means that you're an enemy for life, and they're always going to look for an opportunity to break into your aura and cause havoc within you and people that you care about around you. That's why it's so important to, have the knowledge of how these things can attack you subconsciously, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and so forth, because these things can influence our emotions, our desires, and in all sorts of malevolent intent behind that, to the point where you might want to harm yourself or others. So that's the most dangerous element of the paranormal. I've been oppressed by evil spirits before, so it's no walk in the park. So yeah, it's a learning experience throughout all these things, these events.
Because that's what kind of happened on that first episode of Ghost Loop. That evil spirit that was in that house that was torturing that lady. When he was picking you guys off one by one, that's what he was doing to you guys. It's like he was putting anger into all of you guys so that you would battle one another.
Well, that's something that I'm obviously privy to, knowing about what negative energies do. A situation like Ghost Soup is like, I didn't know some of these people, and when you go in these situations and people handle things differently than you, yeah, I mean, I can tap in. I mean, intuitively speaking, I can feel the anger of a spirit around me. Now, it doesn't mean that I was trying to fight with anybody, but I've dealt with this on some TV shows, and like I see the divisiveness that goes on. I go into people's homes and I know what goes on. This is what I tell them is like, people can fight over nothing. This is what they want because they get energy from negative energy. So negative energy wants negative energy. When spirits, we go onto a place where there's something like that, you can deal with all sorts of circumstances. Especially in residentials, and you're trying to help somebody. I mean, they're going to do whatever they can and manipulate the situation to their advantage from the shadows.
What was the worst? So what I'm assuming is people call you. They know how to contact you, and they say, I have a problem. What was one of the most worst ones that you had come across where you were like, I don't even know how these people were even living in this house?
Well, there's a story I wrote about in my second book, Shadow Trace of the In-Between. We also did a documentary. It's called Devil Down South. You can watch Maleficent and also this documentary on scarenetwork.tv. It's a streaming platform. A bunch of documentaries I've done on there. And this story is very harrowing. It is unbelievable. And it's a girl reached out from down south to me wanting help because she was going through the symptoms of possession while she's pregnant. And I went through one hell of a roller coaster ride with this girl, and have plenty of evidence to back up what had actually gone on between her and what I experienced on my side of the fence when I was living in New York at the time, whether it's speaking English backwards or, hissing at me when I put a cross up to the phone when she's not even looking at me, which I have on audio. These are defining moments that brought even my faith to a new level, but also on the possession spectrum, which I've never witnessed before. But I didn't know how to help this girl because no one else wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole because there was a child involved, and something happened to the child. You could be blamed for something.
Mm-hmm.
The story about Annalise, and the priest and the family are getting charged for negligent manslaughter. So but at the same time, you get invested, you try to help people. It's like you get stuck in these situations. But that one really stands out to me. It's really horrible, but I think it was important to share that story to bring awareness to what people can invite into their lives with some of the dark magic and rituals that they do when they feel lost or they feel like they want revenge against someone or whatever it be, to feel empowered in life. So I think that's important.
I agree. Oh, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah. So in your work, as you're going about doing these kind of paranormal entities, would you say that it's more common for you to come across malevolent entities or, benign or just good entities or non-affiliated entities?
Or ones that are just stuck in that loop.
Yeah, just kind of in limbo.
Well, I mean, a lot of these situations can mostly be like a human spirit. They can act out as something that could be negative. There could be a negative human spirit, but there'd be certain characteristics that would stand out to me that I would look for, kind of like scratching on the walls, foul smells with no rational explanation, people having psychic abilities without having psychic abilities, or big, huge objects being moved throughout the house. I mean, there's certain things that human spirits can't do that I'd be looking through, and on top of my intuitive ability. My intuitive ability is something I use as a piece of equipment too, that I try to correlate with the other equipment that we use to try to validate what I'm using as well. So incorporate with all that, I would try to have some sort of notion where I'd be leaning towards a human spirit or a demonic spirit. Now, if I believe it's a human spirit, I would just do a typical blessing on the house. And if I really believe that there's an infestation going on, then I would do the exorcism ritual on the house.
And excuse me. So when you're doing the exorcism ritual, generally I kind of associate that with some sort of priesthood, some sort of, divine calling. You're operating as a medium, and do you find that the entities are more receptive to you because you're not a priest, because you are a medium, or do you find that maybe it's something that you struggle with?
I feel like they're very receptive to me. Number one, I believe that spirits in general are receptive to people that are sensitive because they have awareness. Now, human spirits get energy from acknowledgement. So that's why they go towards children. They're fresh from the spirit world, and they know that they can have a better chance to be felt, heard, or seen by these kids. So they want to get their message across, whether it be good for good reasons or it could be for evil reasons. Because who the easiest to put fear and induce that within a person is a child, or while a person's sleeping, because we're most vulnerable. But I'd say because you're sensitive, they can see it around your aura. But also, the way that I've been approaching the paranormal is that I pray for spirits everywhere I go and I offer to pray for them. And I've had amazing results and experiences and evidence to back up, what I believe is a lot of these souls getting help and crossing over into the light. And I think because of that intention, now intention is a very profound element in the paranormal field. How you approach things. It doesn't matter if you vocalize something and intentionally, subconsciously, I feel like they know your intention probably around your aura, whether or not you truly want to help these spirits. And I do. And I think there's a reciprocal end result because of that. They're more willing to come forward to me because they know I really do appreciate that we can have this experience. We can learn something from each other. And then ultimately I can try to help them. And again, I've had evidence of proving that over and over and over again.
And in your experience in exchanges with malevolent entities or spirits or demons, do you find that they basically are human in nature, meaning that maybe at one point they were human, or are they more kind of elemental, ancient entities that have always been around?
Well, I mean, a demonic spirit, a true demon, is a fallen angel in my interpretation of that. They were never human. But I do have a kind of a theory that demons don't just possess people, but I feel like they possess spirits that may be earthbound, that they may be responsible for. They can influence them maybe to be the type of person they were in life. Maybe they're responsible for their soul, for some of these rules that I'm not privy to. I don't know. But I do believe that there is influence that can make a human spirit, in my opinion, kind of demonic in nature, where there's a demonic spirit and a human soul, where there's some sort of spiritual osmosis going on, where they're influencing this person. Like even in this situation with the Malefice, I feel like whatever that man was in person, I feel like the demonic spirit was responsible for his soul and wanted to keep him in this sadistic nature that he was in life somehow. And somehow this was playing out in the spirit world. And God was allowing it to happen and allowed me to come in and open up that light and let these females pass. When I said there are rules, and even to give you a pointer from the documentary later on, I had the spirit box on right before I began the exorcism ritual. And it came through the spirit box and said, the rules have changed. And I'm just like, well, who made the rules? Who changed the rules? And it spits out God right after that. So I thought that was pretty profound and a kind of a connection to think that, again, just like Ralph says in the documentary, it's like, the devil's a player within the game. He didn't create the game. And it's so true. And it's really going to be up to God who creates these rules and allows some of these things to happen in the spirit world, or even planet Earth. I mean, there's tragedies and horrific things that happen anywhere in any of these dimensions. But, with tragedies and horrific things, there's an opportunity for people to do good and bring light into something that's engulfed with darkness. And I think that's the whole purpose of us being here for the first standpoint of that. So
you don't think it was like the presence wasn't trying to lie, but you think he might have been telling the truth when he said God changed the rules.
Yes, because if you think it was lying, why would it lie and try to empower my faith to think that God did something that it didn't? I mean, I don't. This is my interpretation as well too. And I had an experience with the Amityville case where it followed me home. We did a whole documentary about it and wrote about my second book, Shattered. I believe the boy John DeFeo was still stuck in the house, and I have video evidence of the boy's voice coming through. Now, obviously, I know that things can disguise and mimic people's voices to make you believe that they're your loved ones. I know I've witnessed this many times, but I asked the kid if he wanted me to pray for him, and he said, yes, please pray for me. And, in my interpretation, as well as Ralph, my mentor, we don't believe that any demonic spirit would ask you to pray for any reason to bring you closer to God. So in my interpretation of that, when it said change the rules, God, no, I don't think any evil spirit would lie to me to empower my faith because that would only make its issue, hard of a battle to win rather than win it.
I wonder why he would change. I know you can't answer it. It's impossible to answer, but it's just kind of weird to me that he would go or decide changing.
I don't know. Set it through the box. Now it could be just some random spirit saying it. I don't know. They're saying referencing something that I don't know, because these spirits can perceive a whole new spectrum of what we can. We typically, most of the time, we're speculating what's happening in the spirit world. We can only get little pieces and hints of it. But again, to get that reference and what I'd experienced, because I'll tell you, there's no way that this evil spirit would want to come after me for that long and say over and over again, dozens and dozens of times, how it wants revenge against me for what I've done. If I didn't do what it appears that I did.
Mm-hmm. So, and I've said this with a few guests. I have like 3 different spirits that are in my house, and we kind of coexist. I just let them be. I let them do their thing. Like, I have one shadow thing that sits in my closet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got, so to the point of our house, nobody sleeps in the dark. Neither of my kids do, and then I don't, and my wife. Because anytime we shut the lights off, it goes crazy in our house.
Right.
But for some reason with the lights on, it's crazy, but the crazy is like manageable. But once the lights are off, like once I shut my bedroom light off and like my TV and it's dark, there's at least 3 different things in my room.
Yeah, it seems like, the spirits do like the darkness. I don't know if the light chases away some of that. I think there's a lot of diversified types of spirits and what they need to be easily manifesting in an environment or want to manifest or to appear or be able to. Again, this is all speculation on our eyes, but we can theorize so the cows freaking come home on who, what, when, where, and how. So, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just let them. I don't ask them to leave. They don't really bother us. You know what I mean? Like, if this is where they want to hang out, I'm like, all right, that's cool. They can do their thing. They can open and close the doors, and they can move stuff around. It's fine. I don't know.
Right.
I guess it gives it a little bit of, makes it a little interesting, I guess.
It's never a dull moment, man.
No.
That's for sure. I mean, this is endlessly fascinating. It's why it's my passion. I experience something paranormal every single day. It's it's just part of my life. It is what it is, and I always bring it back to like the comparison of a Matrix movie. You want the blue pill, the red pill, and I open up that doorway, and I've been living it with ever since, and I'm just following that journey. And I'm lucky to have these experiences, and I want to be able to help people by bringing awareness to it, and anyone I can counter to help, either living or dead. To be an example of for good and humbled by the experiences I can have with these spirits or in general as the paranormal.
Excuse me. Has anything ever followed you home besides the young girl? Like anything malevolent? Has anything ever followed you home?
Plenty of times.
He said the demon, there was that one demon did, or demonic
the stuff from Amityville house followed me home. When I prayed for the kid on the spirit box, I started having nightmares about the house and waking up at 3:15 in the morning and seeing a black mist go through my ceiling. I have evidence that on the documentary Amityville, The Resurgence, which you can also watch at scarenetwork.tv, of actual paranormal evidence associated with the Amityville case. I even have George Lutz's voice coming through the spirit box saying Amityville stole my soul. then I compare his voice to his actual interview. And even a personal friend of his, watched the documentary. She dropped her phone when she heard the voice and said, that is his voice to a T. Things were following me associated with that case. I've had many different things follow me home. I even had, the demon from the story of The Conjuring 3 followed me home because I went by the boy's house in the year of 2020, that wacky year. In front of that house, I said a prayer for spirit, and that thing followed me around for a couple of weeks too. And I put that, a story on my YouTube. You just type in Sean Austin Paranormal, and I've had many weird things happen to me. I've had some of the most profound things happen to me while I'm sleeping. I mean, you name it. I mean, I've been pulled by my ankle out of my bed about a foot. I've been hit in the face, slapped. I mean, tugged on. I've been, name it. I've pretty much seen it besides like a full-on levitation right in front of me, stuff like that. So, yeah.
So did to make a couple of your shows, like, did they like come to you, or did you propose to them? Like how did that work? Because I mean that's pretty cool that you got to do you got a show and everything, multiple shows.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, most recently I was on the Netflix show 28 Days Haunted, and it was obviously a very profound experience for me too, to be able to be in a place for that long and isolated away from everything. It allowed me to have the most beautiful paranormal experience that I ever had with the female spirit. I even wrote a song about it. The spirit knew about this song, and her voice of humming the song is in the song. You can actually watch that on my YouTube. Just type in Mercy 28 Days Haunted and watch the 20-minute documentary that I put together of evidence that didn't even make it in the show of what actually happened to me in that case. I'm lucky and humbled to be on some of these opportunities, to be out there in front of a big audience in some of these TV shows, to be incorporated with my passion. This is my passion. I want to be able to help people, but also be able to do it right. But with TV circumstances too, sometimes it can go a little south too.
It's got to be harder with like a couple camera people there, and does that make it harder or easier, or?
I'm so accustomed to it. I've been live streaming since like 2015. I did my first TV show with the Demon Files back in 2015-ish too, where Ralph, it was his show, was on Discovery. I was a little nerve-wracked the first time, but like I'm just like, I'm so appreciative to be there. I'm not nervous about you get accustomed to that, but it's more about being accustomed to some of the people you end up on the shows with if you don't know them. And, people have different methods and different intentions, and it can put a lot of pressure on me. And especially, I had a lot of that in Ghost Loop. I could write a whole book about what happened behind the scenes of that show. And I may one day, might have to call it something else, but it could lead to a lot of disasters, especially, with the pressure of TV and what, the production wants to show according to whatever is going on. I mean, you can have all sorts of drama going on, but, it's part of the game, part of the risk. You go on there and you try to do it the best to your ability and make sure that you're represented in the best manner. Yeah. You roll the dice sometimes with these situations, and just you got to see what happens.
Are there any places that you will never go back to?
No, there's no place that I would never go back to. There was a place in Indiana that I wrote about in my first book. It was called Revenant Acres. Very terrifying place. You can actually watch a video of this person, which I believe legitimately was possessed, on YouTube. Type in Revenant Acres possession. The guy's arm starts contorting. His arms all messed up, and his eyes are dilated. He's drooling in the mouth. I mean, and I when I went there that night, I was with two people that were have done the paranormal 30 years each, and we left that night because we literally felt like we were about to get possessed. I mean, I was holding a spirit box, and half of my body was going into pins and needles. I felt something was trying to get inside me, and the stuff we were experiencing that night was so bad that we all just left because we felt we were just poking the bear at that point. And it stood with me for a while, that place, and I've heard others and friends and colleagues. But I would have went back, even though they don't allow you to go in. I think it's most important that, when you're frightened of things, you're kind of throwing chum out there in the water, and who's going to be coming for that chum? It's like sharks, or if you're in a school of fish and you're flapping in the water like you're wounded fish, I mean, they're going to come right to you. And, people ask me all the time, do you get scared? I can't get scared. Now, can I get startled? Yes. I'd rather use that interpretation or that, notion, because my faith does not work if I'm frightened. if I truly believe that God's more powerful than any devil, demon, or diabolical force, then these things can't idealistically do to me what they want to do to me, and they'll smell it on me. You have to truly believe that God is more powerful than these things, because as soon as you put fear into it, that undermines your faith, and they will literally use that to their advantage in the situation that you may be in the middle of.
Yeah. Are there any places that are on your bucket list that you have yet to go? Maybe bucket list is a bad term, but places that
Places. I mean, obviously the Amityville case, Poveglia Island, places like I don't know, like a bunch of crazy places like that. I thought it would be very fascinating to go. That one of the most tragic, dark places would be Suicide Forest. Think about the energy that place pulsates.
in Japan. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, might be one of the worst places that you could think of. People that actually go there to take their own life. The energy in there is probably so bad. But I think about, maybe some of the good that you could be done there, and go there and offer prayer for some of the souls that might be trapped. But none on how this happens and how people just gravitate to a place like that. And if there's any negative forces that are influencing people and drawing them to that place to get more energy.
I could see you being so sensitive walking into somewhere like that and just being like inundated and like overwhelmed with everything of a place like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You never know when you come into some of these places and what you might encounter. And again, since on my own piece of equipment, I tap into that. I can feel. And when I walk into a place and I know something bad's there, I know it. It's you can feel it. The oppressiveness, the heaviness on your chest. It'll feel like a challenge to walk across the room when something of negative nature is in the environment. Especially if it's threatened by you too. I might have a dream or a visitation before I go on a case, wanting to step in the way, but it tries to frighten me before I go to a place because it doesn't want to lose control of whatever it has in the environment has, or the people that it's latched onto and oppressing.
That had been crazy the first time that happened. You had a dream or something like that before you went there. That had to have been.
Which one?
Said, because you said sometimes you have dreams of some of these spirits or demonic presence, and then you go there. I mean, that first time that happened, that had to have been like, holy shit! I can't believe I just.
The first time it happened. Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I started to be open up spiritually and have a spiritual awakening, like I was having dreams and things were happening. So I mean, it just comes along with the territory. You get accustomed to so much. It changes the way you look at everything when you have these types of paranormal experiences. I mean, I used to believe in this stuff, but now it's as apparent as me inhaling, exhaling oxygen at this point. I mean, It's just that apparent. I mean, it's there whether people want to believe it or not. I know this. I mean, there's just too many things that I've experienced and witnessed to tell me that, this stuff is fake. Now, even though there's a lot of people that do fabricate stuff out there for their own pleasures to be out there in bigger audiences, but this stuff is real and there's a danger to it. And I just try to, make an impact, to be out there, busy with it, do the research, and again, have the intention to try to use my experiences to help others with those experiences.
I mean, is there times that you go there and you don't find anything, or does something always happen?
I mean, sometimes it'll be very quiet, not much will be going on there. I'm pretty sure I could probably get something coming through. I feel like there's spirits that follow me everywhere. So sometimes they'll just tell me what's there through a box or even psychically. But there's a lot of times where you go into a home where someone thinks it's this demon, and it's just, the unknown is very fearful to people. So when they watch all these shows and movies, it's like, even if like a glass was knocked over the counter, they're like, oh my God, there's a hooved creature, with red eyes ready to, take me to the bowels of hell. That's not the case. I mean, most of the time these are human spirits and they want to get noticed. They want to get acknowledgement. They want energy, and they want to have that interaction with other human beings because it makes them feel like they're human, alive in the physical plane, like we are still to this day, because they have not let go of the human life they once lived. That's really what a recipe of a ghost is, in my opinion, is that it's the human element they haven't let go of. This is not who we are as a core. We're spiritual beings coming to live in this physical vessel for a reason, to progress as a soul, have an opportunity to do so, and bring that opportunity with that mission, whether or not you accomplish, and that realization we come here in the first place when we return into the light. And that's what I try to say to the spirits when I try to cross over, that the realization is just a transition into the higher self of why we came here in the first place. And hopefully that, gives them incentive to go and find peace.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you have like a religious background that kind of informs your process, or did you learn it from somebody else? And how does that affect the approach that you take?
Well, I was brought up Catholic. I mean, I was an altar boy. I went through Catholic schools and stuff like that. I always thought about God. I think I prayed, for sure, but not until, to actually have some of these experiences, especially to witness, when I started having some creepy, dark stuff, the first thing I ran to was like holy water and prayer, and to actually witness things of, evil nature react negatively of religious significance just brought my faith to a whole new level. I mean, like I said, with the girl who was possessed, I mean, she couldn't see him on the phone. I put a crucifix 6 inches tall up to the phone. She hisses at me. I mean, that's right up out of a movie. She can't see me. Why would something react to something like that if it's not making this thing angry? It's experiences like that. It's just like, that's why my faith is so strong to this day. And like, I will use that for the rest of my life when I encounter these dark things, to avoid opportunities for them to take advantage of the situation, to get in you, because that's what they want. They want the opportunity, the invitation to manipulate you as a puppet and make you suffer and make you an example and say, look, God, man can't handle life. And in the first place, because of the creation of our man.
So your background, your Catholic background, has informed you in a lot of ways. In fact, it sounds like the paranormal experiences have reinforced your faith and made you a firmer believer in the things that you were kind of brought up believing. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my upbringing contributed to that, but it's a different ball game than just walk into church and go along with what you were brought up in, and then be in front of an evil spirit and see it react, like back off, because of, your faith. Now, it could be convenient. Some could say because it was my upbringing, but I don't know. I don't judge anyone as a different belief system than me, but that's my experience, and that's how I advise people, because I've seen it. I've seen it up close and personal, and these things hate anything having to do with God. They hate it, and it makes them run for the hills. And that's why I don't mess around with this stuff. You can't fight these things with weapons or guns. It's your spiritual muscle, not your physical muscle. So you better be prepared to discover what that is, so you have the best chance to protect yourself.
Is one of the questions that you ask when you're talking to someone that needs help, do you ask them the religious background? Do you notice more religious people have experiences, more non-religious people have experiences, or does it just not matter?
I mean, I've seen people that just don't believe in anything say that stuff's going on in their house. And then there'll be people that are also Christian or Catholic and maybe some other different religions. And, I won't turn away anybody. I'll try to help them in any way I can. If they're willing to listen, to try anything to make sure they get help, then I'll try to do what I can to help them, as long as they're willing to listen to me. And it's also why I don't charge to go to people's homes, because there's no guarantee that I can just go in there with a vacuum cleaner or a proton pack and soak up the ghosts and say, have a nice day, for $500. I'll, do this for you. I know there's some people that charge, out there. I just would never do that. I mean, but, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees on what may or may not happen after you leave there. And it's also on the lifestyle of the people too.
On their lifestyle?
Yeah. I mean, like, say for instance, you go into a home, and now I'll give you an example. I just went on a residential case down in the Jersey Shore, and some young kids in their 20s are living right next to this very infamous bar in the Jersey Shore. It's on the show. It's called DJ's. And this girl reached out to me, and, I went down there to try to validate what she's experiencing. Definitely had some stuff in there. I feel like there's a man spirit that's negative that was feeding off the partying that's going on there. And now all these kids are partying, doing God knows what on top of alcohol in this house. They're there to party. Now, I blessed the home, but then she's like, stuff is still happening. I'm just like, I can't really help in a situation like that, because people are indulging with probably booze and drugs, in that house. You know what I mean? It's a party house in the beach. And I can't do anything, even if I turn that house into a church and then kids go in there to party and indulge and lower their vibration with doing, drugs and alcohol, it's going to bring that stuff right back in. And even the guy came through the spirit box when I was in there and he just said, get wasted, drink. These negative energies are feeding off that. It has an opportunity to influence people, cause fighting in there, which there was fighting going on there. So it's kind of makes it difficult for me to actually be able to help a situation like that. So that's why I try to tell her, like, look, maybe try to do some sort of blessing, cleansing before you guys drink there at the weekend, and maybe afterwards to try to keep this stuff at bay, because it's just going to keep coming back because people are always partying there. It's a party house. So that's just a good example that even just popped out of me that just recently happened, because I can't help a situation like that, because I told her, it's just like, thank God it's not your main residence. But if people are partying there, even if it was a family where one person had trouble with drugs, if they're doing like heavy drugs, like that dark entity is going to go right onto them, and they're susceptible to their attacks, whether psychologically, emotionally, or spiritually, because of that. So it's hard to help people if they're not willing to help themselves. So that's where that guarantee, we just don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of like the show Intervention. It's like, you can't enable people that keep, their kids, they keep enabling them, giving them money, and they keep using on drugs. Like, you got to like pull the rug beneath them. They have to be willing to help themselves, or else no one's going to be able to help them.
So there's a fair amount of kind of rehabilitation of certain spaces that goes on in addition to whatever spiritual work that you're doing.
Say that again. I missed the last part.
I said, in addition to the spiritual work that you're doing, there's a certain amount of rehabilitation of the living going on in the spaces where you visit, right?
Well, of course. Your lifestyle depends on whether or not these things can manipulate and get in your head. If you're doing things of negative nature and lowering your vibration, then it makes you susceptible to their attacks. They can manipulate that from the shadows. If you're drinking too much or doing drugs, or you have a lot, if you have a history of abuse, if you have a history of things that are dark in your life, and there's a darkness already in your life, then these things you're a prime target for these things to come in and try to mess with that, because they want to victimize you, get energy from you, make an example out of you.
And you've used the phrase lower your vibration or raise your vibration a couple times, which is a phrase we hear a lot on this program. But for our listeners, for our viewers, explain what you mean by the vibration.
So it's kind of like your aura. So say, for instance, your aura is kind of like your emotional status. Now that emotional status retains and is some sort of energy. Now that energy emanates some sort of color. That color represents whatever emotional state you are. So I think there's also a vibration with that. So if you're in a state of sadness or depression or anger, now that would emanate some sort of color or vibration to your aura and you energetically as a whole. Now that would, if you're at a lower vibrational level, you're going to be on the level of negative energies that are on that same wavelength. Now, if you're on their level, that means they have a better chance to get in your ear and try to amplify emotions within you to get what they want out of you, and have permission to do so because you're on their level. So everything has some sort of frequency to it. Our actions, our personality, and us as a whole, or what we do in life, if that better explains it.
Sure. Well, that is fascinating. Now, I want to kind of take our viewers through a tour of the website, SeanDAustin.com. Kyle, do you mind putting up the comment there?
Yes, on my website, I mail out signed books and also a couple of DVD copies. I'm selling the Malefist and the Amityville documentary right through there. I sign it anywhere in the U.S. Otherwise, you can get my books on Amazon.
So folks, if you're interested in checking out more of Sean's work, his programs, he's got links to Scare Network. He's got links to the music, to photos. You can reach out to him directly, and also, of course, his shop where you can buy his books and view his other productions. What's something we should take a look at here?
Let's see. Well, Scare Network, it's a lot of the documentaries that I've done. If you click on that, there's a bunch of documentaries. It's a new streaming platform since 2021. I've done multiple documentaries on here. We have an app on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple iOS. In the next month or so, it'll be on Apple TV and Google. And yeah, we actually have another series coming out in August as well. About a very awesome, interesting case, a whole neighborhood that's haunted. You can check out some of those documentaries on there. And we have a big announcement about the streaming platform and how easy it'll be for people to watch things probably in the next month or so as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Love that. I mean, the get out to educate people. I think lost you guys. You're not doing it for fame. You're actually doing it for education, right? You're doing it to actually help your fellow people out here. I think that's
Of course. Now, of course, everyone likes attention. You want to be out there. And now the opportunity to be in bigger audiences makes it, in my opinion, the way I'm looking at it is that you have a better chance to make an impact, be in front of more people that are watching you and how you do things and how you approach things. So that's why when I go live on TikTok all the time. I go live on YouTube. And, when I pray for spirits and I leave the spirit box on and I'm praying for these spirits and the voices come through and saying, thank you, I'm going to heaven, and all these amazing things happen. I think that's very powerful. And you see like 100 amens coming through the live. It's like, even if you're helping one person or 1,000 people, you're still making a difference. And that's what I want to be able to do as an end result in my involvement in the paranormal. I want to leave something behind, an impact like my predecessors and people that I respect, like the Warrens or Ralph Sarchi, who was my mentor, and all other people like Zaffis and, all these people that were during the pioneering days where it wasn't cool to be a paranormal investigator or be on TV. It was just, there's a yellow pages out there where people had to look up parapsychologists to get help. I mean, this stuff is interesting and fascinating, but there's danger here, but there's an opportunity for us to bring awareness and help others. And I think that should be obviously a core element of your focus.
So I got one more question for you. So when you guys, like a ghost loop, when you guys recreate a scene like back to what the time period of the spirit that you guys are dealing with, how did you guys come across that was a technique that worked?
Well, I mean, obviously in the paranormal field, many people use trigger items, so to speak. So having that opportunity to take it to the next level and create an environment that actually may have the spirit react to that was something that was prevalent in their life, obviously is, taking things to a very high experimental level where you might have a better chance of getting more evidence of what's going on and get answers and ultimately help the situation.
Well, that is very good. Kyle, do you have anything else? Oh, it looks like he's frozen. Well,
I think that's a cool technique. I keep losing my. That's a technique I'd never seen before, and I think that's a great approach.
Mm-hmm.
So I commend you guys for thinking. It's almost like outside of the box thinking.
Outside the spirit box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, very good, Sean. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if anybody is interested in following you on social media, you've got Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, SoundCloud, all linked on your website, SeanDeAustin.com. So make sure that everybody's listening gets a chance to go check out Sean's work, follow him on social media. If they are interested in contacting you, he's got the contact information also on the website. Sean, we really appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
For everyone else, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to give us a like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, keep on exploring the edges of the unknown.